Hi, welcome everyone this beautiful Friday morning. I am like so excited and over the moon to introduce you to our amazing guest. I don't even know where to start. I mean, best-selling author, international speaker. What an amazing inspiration! Self-proclaimed business healer. I can truly just say what I've learned from you is absolutely amazing. And I know a lot about listing and lead gen, but you just I can't even begin to tell our listeners today how amazing Knolly is. You've been an entrepreneur since you were 12 years old. I mean,
Yep.
just the list goes on and on. So, welcome everyone. Just wanted to let you know we're going to cover something that's very important to this market right now, and that is lead generation and getting listings. Because if you have the listing, it is king. At least that's the word on the street in our position here as real estate agents. If you have the
Yep.
listing, and especially with inventory being where it is, I mean, granted, it's a shift where always shift happens. It's always going to happen in our profession, and the way to roll this, with this wave. I'm really excited to have Nali to share these nuggets of knowledge that he's developed his entire life, especially on the topic of listing. And so this is a farm and ranch podcast, and I wanted to share Nolly's process and knowledge because those foundational tactics are tried and true. And then I'm going to jump in and give you my little nuggets on how we're going to roll them into targeting ranches and ranch owners. So, Nolly, I'm going to
Absolutely.
let you take it away. I know that you have a lot to cover and a lot to share, and I just want to personally thank you for taking the time to talk to our farm and ranch agents. This is not only an internal to EXP, it's actually external. So we get agents from all over the state of Texas that watch this show to learn more about this niche market and profession. So I'm going to let you take it away.
Well, and I might look like the farm and ranch expert, but Lindsay, you definitely have me on that. So, but it's just like you said, the strategies, the tips, tricks, tactics that we use can be utilized in any niche as long as you are focused on listings. Focused on listings. Like you said, you're the king or the queen of the market when you have the listings, because when you have the listings, you control the inventory, you control the market, you control pretty much everything, and it basically it's a top down. So you're the listing is the king or the queen, and then it goes on down. So I encourage you. I did a class yesterday. It was Thursday. I did a class on, and it was to a group out of South Carolina, and we talked all about listings. And one of my questions was, why haven't you begun to take more listings? You know, and it's very interesting to kind of, and I want you to be thinking. You're listening right now. I want you to be thinking about this. Why aren't you more focused on the listing side of the business, the listing game? Well, I got to tell you, Lindsay, I heard a lot of different answers. Listings are too hard. It's hard talking to the sellers. I like buyers better. I'm more suited for the buyer business. Somebody told me that, I mean, there was so many different reasons. I mean, it just went on and on and on. And finally, I acknowledged everyone's reason. I was very thankful that they participated, which was very, very good participation on that. And they gave me the reason why they just weren't that focused on listings. And at the end of the day, I said, let me tell you the real reason. It's because you're scared. It's just fear. You don't know what to do, what to say, how to get started. You feel like you have to do buyers for X number of years, to work up the courage or the strength or the muscle to jump into listings. And the truth is, none of that's true. When I got into real estate, I took 21 listings in my first 74 days in real estate. And I started with listings. My first deal was a listing. You may not know this, Lindsay. I don't know if we talked about it before, but my first listing was all 100% in Spanish. and the owner didn't speak a lick of English, and my Spanish was pretty good back then. And I got the deal. I got the listing, in Spanish. No doubt. I had to let them know what the listing agreement said and everything, and in my limited Spanish. But yeah, it's and so I just encourage you listening right now. here on this Friday morning, that, or whenever you're listening to this after the fact, that you can and should have listings as your primary focus in your real estate business. One of the big reasons for that is that even if you are wired to work with buyers like I am, so my personality profile is that, let me just put it this way: when I score as a listing specialist, I'm like a 0 out of 10. Okay, so my ability or aptitude to be a top lister is supposed to be 0. Okay, according to all the tests out there. But the reality is, if you will take this business and do it according to your personality profile, you can actually bend the business around you, and you can show up and do it your way. So it really is it's a lot of fun. I know this is going to be more of a Q&A, so I don't want to really take over the spotlight.
Actually, I want, we may need to do this in another podcast or meeting, but I've been diving into the personality profile. And for some of
Sure.
you that don't know, it's called I call it the disc profile. Is there another name for it that I'm not aware of?
Yeah, there's actually 4 different ones that I recommend, but the disc is the first one. So the disc, and there's actually a university that puts out a test for free. Free is my favorite 4-letter word. It's 123test.com, and it's a major university that puts it out there for free, because they don't really have to charge. They're a university, and there's a lot of tests on that site, but make sure you go to the disc personality test that they put out. And then there's several other free ones. I think Tony Robbins has a free one. But there's the disc test, which is the first one, is my go-to. The second test is called Wealth Dynamics. That's my favorite test right now. The Wealth Dynamics, it's called the Genius Test, in Wealth Dynamics, and it's actually the disc on steroids. It's also free, but they do have a paid version. It's like $100. There's also the Passion Test, which is another test that I recommend people take. And there's a Purpose Test. So there's really 4 different ones. It depends on how far down the rabbit hole you want to go. But, your personality profile is your superpower.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what really sets you apart, as an individual, as a superhero, really. People underestimate that. But because most people haven't done the work, Lindsey, to find out who they really are. I mean, we're talking grown people, like, 40, 50, 60 years old. And what they find is that they've been going down a path. They might have done some personal development. I'm sure we all have done some personal development, but going really deep down, who am I? What creates lasting, deep, long-term happiness and fulfillment for me? And it's interesting because I'll talk to my coaching clients. I've got a client right now. He makes about 25,000 a month, but he knows he should be at 100 plus a month right now. And I'm coaching him to his ultimate greatness. And I'm like, man, what turns you on? And he really can't say. I mean, he's in his 50s. He's like, well, I like seeing people do this, and I like doing this for people. I'm like, man, that's great. I'm glad that you like doing all that for people. But what do you like? And I even took him to an exercise. I said, okay, just imagine for a moment that you and your wife, you never met your wife, you're by yourself. This will never happen. God forbid. We don't want it to happen. But let's just say it's just you. Would you live in the house you live in right now? And he was like, no, I wouldn't. Okay. All right. So would you live in that neighborhood? He's like, no. All right. Well, now we're getting somewhere. I said, okay, now close your eyes and describe the house that you live in. So he described it. I said, now walk to the front door, open the door. What do you see? And he saw a beach, he was living on the beach. So in his, like, what was really him, he had never gone through the exercise to see, like, what do you want? It's cool to be like, and a lot of times women do this, that become mothers. They spend their whole career, they have a career, then maybe they raise a family. They're so used to, catering to the kids. What do the kids want? And whatever the household needs are, that they don't really discover their own identity, sometimes until later, most times never. And that's why, in top top 5 regrets of the dying by Bronnie Ware, it's a book. The top 5 regrets of the dying. The number 1 regret is that I wish I'd had the courage to live a life that was true to myself, not the life others expected of me or wanted for me. That's the number 1 regret of people on their deathbed in their last 12 weeks of life. And she interviewed tons and tons of people because she worked as like a hospice nurse for her career. And so this was the number one regret. The number two regret, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. So this is as me, as the business healer, what I'm interested in is seeing people go to their deathbed. This sounds morbid, and it is a little bit. I want you to go to your deathbed with no regrets. There's 5 big ones, and for most people that I coach, they're headed straight for all 5 regrets. And so I don't know how we got on that, but that.
Okay, so I'm going to bring this back because this is actually a really interesting topic, and I've been diving into it. So little sidebar, guys, sorry. But this is very important. If you sell real estate, if you're a real estate agent, I found out working in the broker room when we had agents leaving the brokerage because they were getting out of the business completely. And it was because of this reason. They did not know that their personality type had a place in real estate and they were in the wrong place. Right. And so just to give you guys an example, I thought this whole disc thing was BS for the HR department because I've taken it a few times for some different jobs, corporate jobs. But when I took it for EXP to be a staff member, they really dove into it. And that's, one of the reasons why they said I was a great managing broker, because I am fearless. I will talk to anybody. I will help find the solution. I'm a D and an I. I forgot what I means, but D obviously is like dominant personality, which y'all know that's me. So the funny part about it is I started looking at the different ways to make income in real estate, especially EXP has 13, what I found out, at least 13 different ways to make revenue at EXP. And they're not all for the same personality. Right. And what was happening is a lot of these agents, not just EXP, everywhere when the shift happened, were jumping ship. They were leaving it because they really didn't have a chance to find out what they were good at or, what job. And so for me, being a D personality, I love listings. I knew right out the gate who I was. I was very fortunate. Right. I know I'm a unicorn and I know I'm very outspoken. Buyers are liars, sellers are yellers. I'm Italian. I can handle a yeller. I can't handle the complaints and just, I know it sounds harsh that buyers are liars, but they say they want one thing. And then when you show them that exact thing, they don't want it. They forgot. They didn't realize that they wanted this. And then you show them something they don't want. And it's like, oh, this is what I wanted. And I'm like, this is nothing what you said that you wanted. This is not even remotely in the same county that you wanted. And so I have a hard time with buyers because of my personality. So I refer those out because I know who I am in my personality. I know what I'm good at and how to focus my time and energy. Because also too, it feeds my happiness. It feeds my spirit.
Absolutely.
I'm a big marketing person. So a big part about marketing, not just residential listings, but farm and ranch. Farm and ranch is off the chain when it comes to marketing. I mean, drone footage, mapping, massive magazines and ads, and our world's a little different. So for me, I ate that up. And the other part of it I'm learning is that I like to teach. I like to coach. I'm not scared to get in front of the universe on YouTube. So just going back to this, really, really important is to take the disc, and some of the ones that Knolly recommended, because it'll start breaking down your thinking on, what part of real estate is meant for me and that I am going to succeed at, because it's just a natural part of who I am. So I'm really excited you brought that up. I definitely probably offline want to get with you because I'm really diving into this, because we do have different ways of income at EXP that work for the I's and the S's and the C's, and basically, guys, the introverts or the people that are, I've been finding that. And it's like, don't waste your license just because we're in a shift and it's no longer what you thought it was. It's no longer quote unquote easy, as a lot of people are saying it. It's hard, and you have to now hustle and go back to the basics, which you really didn't have to employ before this, market went through its shift. So I'm very excited you brought that up. Just a little nugget of knowledge for all y'all, because in general, it doesn't matter if you're selling houses, ranches, condos, commercial. Knowing where you fit in that spectrum is really going to help you level up and maximize your income. So I'm kind of glad that you touched base, because it's been on my heart and my mind as well. So
it's important because when you understand what your profile is and then you operate your business according to it, it makes it fun and easy, instead of being arduous, difficult, and hard. And like somebody asked me today, they said, "What is the perfect profile for an agent?" Now, technically, if you read the books and you study all the materials, it will say a DI or an ID, which I'm not. So I knew that I had a natural handicap when it came to being a top lister from the beginning. I score, like I said, I score a 0 out of 10 to be a top lister, because my profile is more of a buyer agent. But what I also knew was that I could work um, 3 times. I could work 3 times as many listings in the same amount of time as I worked the same amount of buyers. So if I could do 30 buyers a year, I could do 90 sellers. And I actually proved that in 2008. That was my fourth year in real estate in Austin. I became the #1 solo agent in the city, ranked by Austin Business Journal. I did 96 transactions as a solo agent. And I was working. I wasn't. I didn't work any nights and weekends. I worked 4 days a week, and it was a really good schedule. I got to tell you, it was a great schedule. But I had a lot of leverage. I was used to running an organization before I got into real estate. So there's a lot of pieces to it. But yeah, don't get discouraged just because you don't make the quote unquote fit for that. For the industry. If you learn how you're wired and then bring that to your game, you can crush it. Absolutely.
I love the way you said
Yeah.
that there are multiple ways to do this depending on your personality,
Hmm.
and sometimes we just go with the only way everyone talks about, and
Yeah.
diving in. So that is super cool that you have that knowledge. So sorry guys, we kind of got off track, but I hope you really just got into that and really saw the deeper picture. Because when we're diving into being more successful in maximizing our business and our income and our success, you
Yeah.
really have to start thinking outside of the box and learning who you are. So I'm very
Yeah.
excited you
That's
said.
where it begins, to be honest with you. And it's good that I mean, we might say we're off track, but we're really on track because it really begins with finding out, for discovering your superpower. In my new book, it's on McGraw Hill. It's not out yet, but I've already written it. We're going back and forth with the editors and all that. And it's called 3 Hours a Day. And in that book, I give my 7-step process for how to work 3 hours a day, making 20, 30, 40,000 a month. And I've been doing this for over 7 years. And the reality is, it starts with step number one. There's 7 steps. Step number one is to hone your superpower. And a lot of people say, Lindsay, they say, well, I'm going to start with my big why. My big why is the first thing I'm going to start with. And what I say is that that's nice, but I've coached enough agents to know that you got to start deeper than that, because if you don't know who you are, you don't even know what your why is. It's like you say, why does a rose bloom? Because it's a rose. That's what roses do. So if you don't know you're a rose, you don't know that to bloom, right? So, but roses bloom because that's what, and all of nature knows who it is and does what it does because it's what it is. And if we don't understand who we are, we can't really be the full version of ourselves that we were created to be. And that's where it really starts. I have people say, "Oh, my grandkids, that's my why, my big why," and then we meet every week. A quarter later, 3 months later, they haven't reached their goals. And I say, well, I guess the grandkids aren't big enough. Why is it? And because the reality is, that's not really a why, a true why. And when you understand who you are, now you can say, wait a minute, this is who I really am. Therefore, my why becomes obvious to that. So anyway, I'm glad we started there, because that's really
You
that
know
is.
what? You're right. It really wasn't off topic, but I wanted to give that foundation because it's one thing to follow the steps, but if the steps aren't fun for you, you're
Yeah,
not going to do it.
that
Um,
sucks. Yeah, it sucks.
so
It's no good.
no, it's no good. I just got lucky that I don't know. I've been in sales before real estate, and so my background, I was able to lean on that. And I think
Yeah,
sometimes when you jump into real estate first, and that's your first sales experience,
sure.
I will tell you, someone coming from like real deal sales, like marketing sales and selling outdoor products and, guns and deer stands and all that jazz.
Yeah.
Um, and being a part of that market, when I jumped into real estate, I'm not going to lie to you. I was like, this is the most bass backwards like way of selling I have
Sure.
ever seen. And I
Sure.
just was trying to figure it out. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put my spin on it because I know that my sales experience, the Dale Carnegie's and, think that type of training, I know that works for me. So I applied
Yeah.
it and I applied obviously some of the other foundational tools that you're going to talk about here shortly. Um,
Sure.
but it is true. I was able to be more successful faster because I already knew who I was. Like I said, I already did the disc profile in other jobs prior to coming into real estate. So I guess I was just naturally fortunate. But I'm really diving into it because I want to share with all of our agents that are
Yeah.
struggling with that.
Let's
Maybe
do it. Let's do it.
you don't know who your
Yeah.
profile is to do this job. So
Yeah. It's
I'll
fun.
see.
It's fun because I actually jump on YouTube. I've had several YouTube episodes where I just jump in and it's just a free for all. So I say, okay, um, you have to take your disc test first before you jump on, and then you just tell me what your disc is, and I tell you who you are. And I actually have done a bunch of these. They're like an hour long. Each one has like 5 or 6. So somebody will say, I'm an SCI or I'm an ISC or I'm a D, I'm a
Oh my
DC,
gosh, I'm
whatever.
calling you later and we're
Oh,
doing.
it's so much fun. It's so much fun. And I did one today actually, earlier this morning, and the person was like, I said, how are we looking? She said, it's spot on, like it's spot on, and that's a lot of fun for me. But anyway, I digress. That really is fun though. I want to deep dive down that with you because some people think that what we're talking about is philosophical, but what we're really talking about is foundational. Nobody gets excited about seeing a poured foundation. I guarantee you. I mean, you might get excited if you've
Unless
been
it's your
waiting.
own poured foundation for your new house, which
Yeah. Now, if you've
I
been if you've
like.
been waiting a while and you're like, hey, wait a minute, when's it going to be done? And they clear, and oh yeah. If it's not really your house that you're under contract with, and you're just going around, hey, let me just show you some foundations. And I don't want to see those. I want to see the house, like the finish. But I guarantee you, the foundation is so important. It's not sexy, but it's super important. And what we're talking about, what we've been talking about before we get into, people are like, where's the meat? That's the meat that you're talking about. Now we're going to get into the dressing and everything else. But yeah, I'm game to play that game with you. I go way down the rabbit hole, and I took my first disc assessment when I was 19. My wife and I both took it before we were married, actually, and we got married a couple years later. And I've been taking it like repeatedly since, and I've taken a bunch of others too. So it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, before we dive in, don't need to pause again, but I did want to let the audience know that in the description of this broadcast is all the links, and maybe not all of them, because sometimes Nolly gives a lot of information while we talk, but majority of the major links that he's going to talk about, we have in the description. So please feel free to check that out. When he's talked about the 3 hours a day, it's actually 3hoursaday.com. So it's down there too. So we're going to talk about a lot of stuff, and to just make sure that you reference that. And if we miss something, reach out to me and I'll be happy to get to it. But I think Nolly's going to stay on track maybe right now.
Yeah, unless I mean I'm game for just having a conversation. I don't really. I mean, I have a lot of planned presentations that I do, but I'm game for just if you're game for it.
Absolutely.
We just spent a we haven't told them that we just spent a week in Cabo hanging out.
Don't be
That was a
telling.
lot of fun.
Don't tell me.
Golly.
Tell me secrets. Let me tell you. I guess we'll get to listings
Oh,
here.
you're not supposed to be there. Never mind. We
No,
didn't
no,
do that.
no, no, no. I got permission to be there from work, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I will tell you, I've never invested in myself as much as I have with being with EXP. One, EXP has given me the financial freedom to do these things, to go on these trips. And yes, guys, you heard Cabo, but it wasn't like that. Like, we were there for a team building convention,
Yeah.
and the amount of people I got to listen to and meet to inspire me, to help me grow, investing in myself. I just, it was amazing. And then there's some other things that happened. I ended up getting to meet some key people who are going to help me develop the farm and ranch division for EXP. I got to meet some leadership that I hadn't got to meet before. So, it gives back. Everybody looks at the price tag. How much does it cost to go to these things? And I'm like, dude, listen, I have every time I go to these things, I end up maximizing my income one more time. Like
Absolutely.
I end up
Absolutely.
doubling my income one more time because it unlocks this side of me. Like they say, you're like the 6 people you hang around. And if you're
Yeah.
hanging out with practically billionaires and millionaires who are in this business and giving you the secret to success,
Hmm.
you know, it seems so obtainable. So
Yeah,
no, we had an
absolutely.
amazing time in Cabo. Yeah, absolutely interview style. So let's get to listings. Foundational wise, to be a good listing agent, what do you need to be doing?
Well, the first thing you need to, there's really only two things that you need to do. And it's interesting because I did when I was about, probably about 8 or 9 months into maybe before 8 months, maybe 4 or 5 months into the business, I was so overwhelmed. I mean, I had so much going on, and I took the listings right away, and I was successful right away, but I had a big problem in that I was overwhelmed. And those that go through feast or famine kind of experience this. So like, you got a lot of business, you take your eye off the ball, now you're servicing your business, then all of a sudden, you don't have business anymore, you got to go back to generate more leads, and you have too many leads that you can't keep up with, so you stop lead generating, you start working your business again, and that's really feast or famine. And my thing was, I had a lot of business coming in, but I didn't have my systems in place, and I was doing a lot of things that I didn't like doing in this business. So what I did was I wrote a list of all the different tasks that had to happen on a listing from the time that I generated the lead, because that's step number one: generate the lead. And then step number 40, it actually was 46 steps that I came up with. Step number 40 is to close the transaction, and then there's 6 steps to happen after closing. Well, what I did, Lindsay, that was different, and it was just sort of a salvation for me so that I wouldn't burn out. Um, is in those of you doing high volume, that's the danger that you face, is burnout. So what I did was I rated everything that I did in the business on a scale of 1 to 5. So one, and this is very important exercise for you to do. 1 means I hate it. 5 means I love it. Okay, so like an Amazon rating. Yelp and a lot of businesses use the same rating. So 1, I hate it. 2, I don't like it. 3, I like it. 4, I really like it. 5, I love it. And what I decided to do, Lindsay, back then was I said, I'm only going to ever do 4s and 5s, because that's going to give me the kind of lifestyle and the business that I enjoy, like waking up to. I'm only going to do 4s and 5s. Now that might sound like a spoiled kid, and that's basically what it was. I was like, I'm not going to do stuff I don't like doing. And I even went even further. I said, if I hate it, don't like it, or even if I like it, I'm not going to do it. I have to either really like it or love it, or it's not going to get done. So that's the first exercise I tell people to go through, in the process of getting started, with in the listing game. What is it that you're going to do now? What is the most important things that you can do in listings? Well, there's really only a couple of things that I figured out early on. Of the 46 steps, there was only about 5 steps that moved the needle. In other words, they actually, 90% of the success would happen through these 5 actions. And then it got down to the point where I said, there's actually only 2 things that I really have to do. And that was to generate the lead, go on the appointment. Generate the lead, go on the appointment. Generate the lead, go on the appointment. Now I got to the point where I was generating enough leads to where I hired somebody to go on the appointment, paid them a fee, just to go on appointments for me. And all I did was generate leads for 2 hours a day. And so that's basically how I kind of built up my business in the listing game. But there's so many things that agents do on a listing, that what happens is either you won't be able to do volume if you do all that stuff, and you won't be doing things that are income producing. So income producing activities are either creating immediate cash flow. That's what we call now money. People say, I need money now. Okay, that's cash flow. You have a cash flow problem if you need money now. So the things you should be focused on are either generating immediate income or future wealth. Like you know, a like residual income. Agent attraction is one of those. So when it comes to your listing business, the number one thing you should be doing every single day is generating leads for 2 hours every day, every morning from 9 to 11, 9 to 11, 9 to 11. And I guarantee you, there's no way, there's absolutely zero way that you can't succeed if you do that. There's nobody I ever talked to that's out of the business, gotten out of the business. In fact, I had one gal come to me. She was a showing assistant for another guy, and I hired her as a showing assistant. I was like, man, this girl's pretty good. I wonder why she's. So I talked to her. She says, well, my husband says I have to get out of the business if I don't make a sale because I haven't sold anything for 8 months. I said, well, what are you doing? So I looked at what she was doing. I told her what to do, like we're talking about now. And within 90 days, she had 4 deals in escrow. She went on to, now she's making 300,000-400,000 a year. And she's working about 3 or 4 hours a day. So the reality is you can't tell me you're doing lead generation every day, at least 4 days a week. Okay. I call it a 2x4, and not succeeding in this business. It's not possible. And so that's the number one thing that agents need to do. And here's the thing, you should never take your foot off the lead generation pedal. Okay. My whole career, I never stopped lead generating in my morning hour. It didn't matter how much. I took 21 listings in 1 week, one time, in a 7-day period. And I still did my regular lead generation every day. And so that's super duper important. And then you have to have the back end systems. That's another sort of conversation, but I think
No,
that's the most important thing.
I want to talk about that real quick.
Yeah.
So, obviously, if you're not lead generating every day, what are you doing? What do you think
Mm-hmm.
is some of the distractions that keeps us from that number one must do task every day?
Well, there's only 5 excuses I've ever heard. And in fact, I was just reading, I was just actually going through my latest book because I document what those 5 excuses are. But most people say that, they can't get in the habit of lead generating. And really, it would be kind of like our forefathers that we used to be tribal species, the Homo sapiens. And we would go from place to place where there was food. And so there was within our tribes, we would have certain people that hunted. That's what they did. They hunted for the food, or maybe they gathered also, but there was a lot of hunting going on. And so imagine the hunters of the village saying, you know what? I got a lot going on this week. I'm not going to go hunting. I'm not going to go for a hunt. We're just busy.
That's really
I got a lot of
that's
stuff on my plate,
that's so
not
funny.
literally. I'm
It's
not
so
going to go
funny
on
you
the
say
hunt.
that.
But well, the tribe's got to eat. So what do you have that's more important than that? Well, I got a lot of things going on right now. It's just absolute. I hate the way use the word stupidity, but it's really being naive. I think in a huge that's being nice. But just imagine we're still the same Homo sapiens. Science says our brain hasn't changed for 300,000 years. So the reality is we're still the same species of people. We're still the same race. And so we have to every single day go and hunt. I mean, it's got to be done. If you're not doing it, somebody's got to. And the fact is, if you don't lead generate, so lead generating, prospecting equals paychecks, not prospecting equals poverty. I don't know any other way to say it. If you don't do the most important thing for your tribe, which is your family and you, okay, then you're just really doing your family a disservice.
And that's
But
so
there are
interesting.
a lot of excuses that people give.
That's
Mhm.
so interesting you say
There
that
is
about
no valid excuse, but there are excuses.
when you talk about. So this is crazy. When I was in Cabo, there was another person that was talking about it's like hunting.
Hmm.
And it's so weird because I'm a hunter. This might connect to some of the farm and ranch agents out there. We live in a rural community. I grew up hunting and I love, just being outside, but also the process of hunting. You don't just show up
Right.
uh, in a spot with your gun or your bow or your arrow. I'm sorry, I'm a 300 Win Mag kind of girl. And
Right.
you actually take earlier before the season even starts. I'm finding out, where are these animals walking? I'm tracking.
Hmm.
I'm looking at scat. I'm looking at where, the different food sources are and the water sources. So, you know, I'm observing this the whole time. So when season comes, I know exactly where I'm going to be, and what my safe shooting lanes are. And here in Texas, we can
Yeah.
feed. So what type of feed? I'm a big axis hunter. I do exotics. Exotics are free range here in Texas. As you know, some of y'all listening may not know that, but love axis deer. It's like the elk of Texas. And they free range all over Texas. Well, there's particular types of food that they like.
Right.
Persimmon, Texas persimmon is one of them. And
Hmm.
so they're started making feed. Talk about getting off topic with Texas persimmon, but going back to the personality profile, my passion is also diving in to that homework and that
Yeah.
process that leads to the success of my hunt. So the
Hmm.
same thing you were talking about with knowing who you are and your personality profile, because if it's work and you don't like it, that means you're not going to do it every day. So
Right.
how can you
Right. That's
find a
true.
way?
That's
How
true.
can you find a way that meets your personality? Because
Yeah.
you're right, it's just an excuse. It's easy to not
Yeah.
do things that you don't like to do, but if you love it, you are going to do it more. It's going to become a pattern. It's going to become
Yeah.
a habit. I trained for the Olympics and in shotgun shooting, which some of y'all
Hmm.
know. um
Wow. I didn't know
uh,
that.
I played sports my
Nice.
whole life. I played a lot of
Sweet.
sports in
It's like
college,
my
but
wife. I was the nerd. I was a computer nerd. Whenever I test out, by the way, they all the tests say that I'm an engineer. All of them. Okay. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. Because I feel like I'm more fun than that. But anyway, sorry, engineers out there. But that's really when I look at my group, I have a lot of engineers in my group. So I guess that's who I attract.
there's a
So yeah.
process. There's a process
Hmm.
and an order way. Even when I have engineers that want to buy ranches, there is
Yep.
a particular type of way I speak to
Sure.
them and present them
Sure.
information,
Right.
because their
Right.
brain works in a different way.
It
And so
does.
and
Absolutely.
so diving into that, that's super awesome. But what I was
Yeah.
gonna say is, when I was shooting and training, your goal is to have a perfect score, to have a
Mm.
25 out of 25. And so
Hmm.
to do that, making it a habit. What was your pre-shot routine? What was my routine? How did I stand in the box? How did I load my gun? Where did I look? Everything was a routine. And the less movement you made, the less chance you could make a mistake or an error. And so
Mm.
getting that to be um, habit and almost completely subconscious.
Yeah.
They taught us scientifically, it's stated that it takes 21 days to form a habit. So
Right.
you have to be doing this process, in my mind, that two a day, for 4 days,
Yeah.
having it on your schedule to where it becomes natural, and making it also, on top of that, making it fun based on your personality. So
Sure.
that
Absolutely.
that's super cool that you said that, because really the process, it's not just doing it, but diving into the process and making the process fun. And I know you're going to talk about some tools that you use, and I think sharing, and I have the screen up a little bit, like, hey,
Yeah.
here's how
Yeah.
you do that. Here's the process. It's not scary. It's actually super easy with all the tools and technology we have. So
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, how you go about when you're prospecting. What are some kind of, top prospecting, verbiage, lines that you use that seem to grab a seller's attention?
Well, that's super key because all of your when you decide to be in the listing game, when I got into real estate, my business card, the very first business card that I ever made, my title was not realtor. My title was listing specialist. I mean, I decided like it was a mindset shift that I took before I got in the game because we can decide. I didn't say I was a top mega agent, a top lister. I just said I was a listing specialist. I mean, can't we decide what we want to specialize in this business? Of course we can. So just like you can be a farm and ranch specialist, whatever. I mean, I just said listing specialist. So I set myself out there from the very beginning. And what I've never marketed for a buyer in my life, never. And this interesting, Lindsay, because I just thought about this the other day, or a couple months ago, actually, that I've never put out a marketing piece for a buyer. Now, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just I've never done it. People say, "Well, how'd you get 1,000 listings your first 10 years in the business?" Well, I mean, I was 100% focused on listings. Like, all of my marketing pieces would be like, "What could your home be worth in today's shifting market?" are you even a little curious about what your home is worth now?
If
You know, I use that kind of verbiage. And so go ahead, Lindsay.
my mind went straight to, like, think about this, guys, in the farm and
Yeah.
ranch world. If you said the same thing, what is your land worth in the shifting market? I
I
mean,
like that.
if I was a landowner and I got that postcard, and there are some people, some of our clients, especially here in the hill country, they're getting older,
Yeah.
um, or they have kids working on the ranch. There's several different reasons why uh, people sell their ranch. However, you know, curiosity, like you just
Yeah.
got a
That's
book
it.
right there, and
Yeah.
see that the market's going up. They see that people are buying land now, really popular. I don't know if you familiar with our industry, but when the market shifts as far as the stock market, we have investors that pull their money out of the stock market and park it in land.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's a
Right.
very
Right.
common
That makes sense.
strategy for their CPAs
Sure.
and their investors. They're like, hey, you know, land is kind of a safe bet. Not gonna lie. Like,
Yeah.
not like somebody can steal it from you. It's staying there.
Right. Right.
Um, in certain areas are great investments, especially if you have to park a large chunk of money. So
Hmm.
I love that hook. I'm sorry to interrupt you. That's just one hook.
Yeah. No,
I
I
was
think
like,
it's great because if you're talking to landowners and you say, hey, I know for a fact that you're not even thinking about selling right now. You have no interest in selling whatsoever. But part of my job is to find out what's going on in the market because I'm the expert. I'm the expert in your area. So would you be offended if I did a free uh, market analysis of your land, your property? And some of these people don't live on the land or whatever. Or you reach out to them, say, would you be offended if I? Because I'm just curious. I mean, are you even a little curious about what your land is worth today or right now in this shifting market? Yeah, I've been
absolutely.
kind of thinking about that. Well, let me have the and I know that you're not now. I always kind of diffuse it because I'm not. I want them to not think that I'm trying to sell them or get them to want to sell their land. But the reality is, if you show yourself when you start going through the exercise and the activities that listing agents do, it just puts you in that whole rhythm and the whole flow of it. And then they're like, you know what, I really don't want to sell, but you know what, my sister-in-law called me the other day. She got a piece of land out in so and so, and what I wonder if you could do something. Well, yeah, I've got a great partner, business partner that works that area. I mean, you never know what it leads to, and the fact that
Exactly.
you see, you know what I'm saying, Lindsay. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, and with that statement, so let me tell you something. Ranchers love to brag about what they have. And let me tell you, even if they're not selling, they will call you because they want to know what their place is worth so they can
Yeah,
brag to their neighbor and be like, did you know our ranch in this market is worth da 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 da?
yeah,
And like you said, it opens the door for referrals. Because what better way for them to be like, hey, I talked to this agent. They gave me a CMA, a market analysis, and you're thinking about selling Joe Bob down the street. Give this lady a call.
right.
She was really, I liked her. And you're right. It's not about getting them to sell, but you
It's
open
not
the door for so many opportunities with this statement, and you didn't
absolutely
and you didn't start with, do you want to sell? Because you
right.
do that to a rancher, I don't even care if they're looking to sell, but like if
Yeah,
you come in hot, they will just be like, nah, I'm good. Like it
yeah,
has to be their decision. Like
right,
I've
right.
never met a rancher, they're like, it's all about them until they know that you are cool. And
Yeah,
normally when they see me and my little hunting dogs that are barking right now, they're like, "Oh, this girl's cool. She hunts. She knows about
yeah.
the dirt." But you're right. So that's insane. Just
Well,
that one nugget, just that one little nugget you shared is worth. Rue, please.
come
I'm
on,
sorry.
Rue. Well,
I'm sorry.
the other cool thing is that once you get a few of them to allow you to work with them, then then you start calling the other ones around there and saying, hey, so and so, I just did the evaluation. They're not looking to sell at all, but here's what I'm doing. I'm the expert in this area. So yeah, but the whole point is that what I want you to think about is all what are your headlines? Is your marketing seller centric? Is it seller centric? I would always say, think about selling your, your property, or think about selling your home. That was on the headline on everything. So for me, I never talked about interest rates. I never talked about, because that's a strategy to attract buyers. I didn't want buyers. So I never talked about schools and all this other stuff that people talk about in their marketing. That is I had a guy, he's one of my mentorship masters in my group, and David Mamo, he's out of Ontario, Canada. He said, man, I can't figure out why I'm not getting enough listings. I said, let me look at your marketing. So I looked at all his marketing. It was all for buyers. I was like, man, you got to change your messaging, bro. It's just like when I start doing my recruiting, when I start saying, hey, would you like to sell an additional, home, would you like to get started in listings? Well, I might be getting new agents with that, right? Or agents that have been buyer agents for a long time. But if I say, hey, would you like to raise your listings up to about 6 to 10 listings a month from where you are now? Now I'm going to start getting more seasoned agents with that headline, so you have to watch the, what we call the call to action, or the messaging that you're putting out, because whatever messaging you're putting out is what you're getting back. It's what people are picking up on.
No,
And I'm not going to rush this morning, but I actually have 8 minutes before I jump on a recruiting
oh my gosh.
thing coming up.
That
So,
is true. So I'm gonna go through some of this. So you have an amazing book.
but you
You
can
actually,
always have me back. I don't mind.
I know we're gonna we really got off topic, but the whole point of this was the secret to getting more listings. So, and I do think
Yeah,
we dove into the foundation of that.
yeah,
There's a few links that I want to share with y'all. So Knolly has a free book,
yeah.
triplemylistings.com, that he's offered up. That link is in the description, like I said. Aw,
That's
awesome.
that one. Yep.
And you know what? Let's do a part two, because
Yeah, let's do a part two.
I didn't dive into one. You have some strategies on how you actually go through the process of sending out marketing material and
Yeah,
farming for
yeah,
leads, for listings.
right.
So
Yeah,
actually, yeah, I'm gonna have you back,
let's do a part
because
two.
because um you're probably not familiar with this. We talked a little bit up online, but most of y'all that are in the farm and ranch world know about MapRight. MapRight now has a marketing postcard mail out system where you can target landowners, and being very specific. And one of the tools that I like about it is that if I have a listing, I can take and search that geographical area of landowners, and I can send them a listing. I can send them a postcard. And normally one of my hooks is, your neighbors are selling. And
Mm.
immediately, nosy neighbors, everyone's like, they
Yeah,
normally call and they're like, so how much does Jim Bob want for his ranch? And
yeah,
and
yeah,
so, but it gives you the opportunity to meet new potential clients, and to network and incubate those leads. And then you get to learn, like you said, you get to learn a market and become an expert in that market. So yeah, we're going to do a part two on actually farming of a listing. But I'm really excited because this first part dove into the foundation of who you are as an agent to be a successful listing
yeah.
agent. So
Mindset.
knowing
Yeah.
your mindset, knowing your
Hmm.
personality. So I appreciate your time today. I know that we have, it's crazy week after Easter, but thank you so much. Check out the links below, and I will let you guys know when we have a part two.
Yeah, and I'll just say too, I love that strategy that you mentioned, because it's interesting when you're selling, because I've sold parcels of land. The last one I sold was like 46 acres in Salado area, and everybody that was around that listing knew everything about like the owner and what they did, and this guy did that, and then this owner would call me. They were reaching out to me, and like they were like, well, how much is it? Well, I let me meet with my bank. I might have a, and a lot of times it's the people that are adjoining that parcel that might want it, or in that same area. So you just never know. You end up having you get a lot of stories, interesting stories, and you might have a lot of allies to help you unload that property if you have a new listing. Good point. I
Absolutely.
love that.
Absolutely. Well, and I'm really excited because I think it opens up my farm and ranch brain with the foundation of just the basics that you have. And I
Yep.
like to let farm and ranch agents know, like, hey, listen, this is tried and true. We just have to put our spin on it with our type of people, and
Yeah.
our landowners, and using the verbiage that speaks to them, and hooks them in, reels them in. So no, I appreciate that. We will let you guys know when part 2 is coming about, Nolly.
Part 2 is nuts and bolts,
Oh
nuts
my
and
God.
bolts. And thank you, Lindsay. I want to say I really appreciate everything that you're doing for us, myself included, and so many of us in Texas. You have a big, big job. I don't necessarily envy it, but I'm so glad that you're in that position because you are a firecracker and you are an amazing human being.
Oh,
I'm glad
you
to
are,
know you. Thank you
yeah,
so much.
I'll have to Venmo you later for saying that.
No, no, you earned it. You already earned it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, y'all. Well, we will be back soon with part 2.